Overdrive continues, brought to you by FanDuel, bringing you everything from the opening line to the final score. We'll catch up with Chuba Hubbard later in the hour, running back down with Carolina. Good Alberta boy, Struddy, right in your backyard. Catch up with Chuba later on, get to our best bets on the Thursday nighter tonight. Oilers in action tonight. We'll get to that momentarily, and Pierre LeBrun coming up here in a moment. But I referenced this Alex Ovechkin news. The Capitals just tweeted out that Alex Ovechkin underwent further evaluation with team doctors, and it was confirmed that Ovechkin has a fracture to his left fibula and is anticipated to miss 4 to 6 weeks. So I don't know if the timeline is any different than what I thought. If it was week to week, I figured he would be out, possibly up to towards 4 to 6 weeks. What I will say is he has been such a tank throughout his career that if it was a sprain or whatever, I think he would have played. And I think this is the medical staff telling him you don't have that option. Like, you can't play, you're out.
That's crazy that happened during, I honestly thought, you see that collision, that guys kind of just collide together a million times a game. And I was shocked that resulted in that.
Yeah.
Especially with him, he's so strong. He's just so built
he's ran
tank.
over so many people and gotten hit. It's crazy.
Yeah, he hasn't missed many games of his career. I'm guessing this will be the longest time he's out, right? If for the 4 to 6 weeks. So it's too bad because he was playing. I mean, he's scoring like crazy, and that team is doing way better. They're exceeding my expectations for him. For sure. So they got to hang on, and then obviously that pauses the chase of Gretzky's record.
Yeah, and I think it ultimately rolls it over to next year. I think that's probably the reality here is that the way he was playing, it felt like a formality he was going to pass him this year. He was literally leading the league in goals. He was on pace for over 60. Now you take a guy who's 39, pretty big body, you get him off the ice now for 4 weeks, maybe more. I don't know if he's going to hit the ground running. I would anticipate he won't. Yeah. Now, again, betting against him has been a silly, silly decision for 20 years. That's how good he is, and that's how great he's been consistently at goal scoring and being a dominating force.
I don't think he goes on the Gary Roberts routine when he's injured either.
Well, that's it. What is Ovi up to when he's just kind of hanging around and can't be
burying
on the bike
Subway sandwiches with chips?
Right. So that's the concern, is 39, injury, lower body, what happens now? And how do you get back onto a horse that was absolutely chugging prior to the injury? But it likely takes him out of a rocket race, which he was leading, likely takes him out of a Gretzky chase this year. And it does make you wonder what happens with the Capitals, because he had been leading the charge. And I agree with your assessment, Struddy. Them in Minnesota, the biggest surprises in the NHL this year, from a positive standpoint. Mm-hmm. Minnie's been unreal. They never lose. Minnesota.
I thought Minnie was going to be absolute trash this year, bottom feeder.
Yeah, especially with their cap issues, the Parise and Suter scenario, and
14 mil.
Yeah,
14 mil dead cap space. It's dead crazy. Cap. But you know what? I think you got to give Washington the Capitals credit, because I think it's hard when the player's aging and they're chasing a record to try to keep a strong team around them. Right, and some of the moves they made, you're like, ooh, I don't know, Pierre-Luc Dubois, and all of a sudden here they are, they're playing really well, and the big guy was chasing down the record with way more success than we thought. So it was like the perfect storm for them. They give them credit. They found a way to manage that pretty well. That's not easy.
It's not, and a lot of it was transitioning from the Backstrom Kuznetsov era into the Dylan Strome. McMichael era, and it's Strome. I'm curious how he reacts to this, because he's been playing so well. He's been in on basically every goal that Ovi's scored this year. What happens now when he's not available to you?
For the people that have been on his bandwagon, it's now let's see what you got now.
Yeah, let's see what you got now, because I would guess McMichael probably moves up the lineup, and you're going to have two young kids.
That kid's been really good, too. McMichael, he was a World Junior player, and he produced, and then people were like, this guy does some great things, and then you're like, is that going to translate? Watching him, he's damn good now.
Yeah, he is. Well, it's weird. He had a comment the other day, he's a Toronto guy, he was a big Leaf fan growing up, and it's always funny when you hear guys that are in the league say that their favorite players or idols are also guys who are still in the league and still in their prime, because he said Marner was his favorite player, and Marner's like 6 or 7 years older than him. But I guess that would be the case. Like when Mitch was starting his career, McMichael was probably like 11, or 12 years old, and that's kind of your wheelhouse when you're figuring things out. And it makes you realize how old the Leaf core is, that Marner and Matthews and Nylander are like the favorite players. It's the same thing in Edmonton, I'm sure, Strud, where there's probably a 19-year-old kid playing somewhere in Utah that's from Edmonton that's like, yeah, McDavid was my favorite player as a kid. And Connor's 27, but they're not young anymore. Like the McDavids and the Dreisaitl's and the Matthews and the Marners, like these guys.
Oh, it's not
going to
be long, Hayes. It's not going to be long before you're like, well, there's only a couple years left of good hockey for these guys.
Right.
That's around the corner, man. That's how it goes from you've been around for a bit to there's a couple good years left for this guy, then it's game over.
Yeah, he's losing a step, right?
Yeah.
Lost a step.
Yeah, well, look at John Tavares. For years, he was regarded as up there with Stamkos, an elite top guy in the league. And then all of a sudden, it's like, he's maybe losing a step. And now he's at a point where he doesn't know if he's going to be playing in Toronto next year. Like it happens. It happens
quickly,
fast, man. It goes by fast.
It happens quickly. Like from Tavares is a great example of that. I still remember it vividly, where I was when he signed, what the reaction was in the city, and now he's in year 7 already.
Yeah.
Like now it's the end of the contract.
Remember we were talking about what potentially years 6 and 7 would look like, and we were like, that time's never even going to come.
Right.
Is there any way he's not back? He's got to be back there, isn't he?
We've had this conversation so many times, Strud. I think you can only have that answer personally. I can't speak for the Leafs. They'll do whatever they're going to do. I don't think you can have that answer until after the playoffs. Like, if it fizzles out, it's ugly in the playoffs, I really think they have to assess the philosophy of the
thank you very much.
Players.
It's not. You can't even repeat that again. Like, it's just common sense. How could you possibly bring back everyone together if they don't win?
Yeah.
Fair point.
And that would be my argument. It's not like, listen, John Tavares is playing very well in year 7. And that was a legitimate worry 6.5 years ago. Like, what is he going to look like in year 6 and 7? Who knows? They'll have 2 cups by then. Well, they don't. They have 1 playoff win since then. And yet he has pulled his weight. He has absolutely pulled his weight.
You know what's interesting? It's like last night there was like some urgency, and it's like, man, like, why not playoff time? All you guys, urgency. Make those plays at the right time. And that's when, I don't know.
That's when you got to do it. I mean, that's
because
the next
you can't turn it on. You can't turn it on in game 83. You got to show signs of it over the year.
Right.
That's the difference. That's the difference, guys.
I agree. Here's Pierre LeBrun, our TSN hockey insider. Pierre, what is your reaction to the Ovechkin news? Fracture in his fibula, and he's out 4 to 6 weeks.
I mean, listen, initially there was actually fear it could be worse than that, believe it or not. But still pretty significant news. And, he was going so good. It's not just a time missed. I think you guys touched on this before I came on, but at his age, what's the ramping up part like when he comes back, right? In terms of when he hits his crescendo again. So pretty tough news, but, the silver lining in all this, if there is at all, not much of one, but I think the Caps are going to show a lot of people how much they've changed the makeup of their team in the last couple of years as far as not being all about him. They've really changed. They're younger. He was having a great year, don't get me wrong, but the team doesn't win or lose based on number 8 anymore like it used to. And I think that'll be the challenge for them now to prove that.
Aren't they a great case study, Pierre, of reloading on the fly? We've heard people saying that we're retooling, whatever you want, but I can't believe what they've done because I didn't have them in this position, a playoff position, to start the year.
No, neither did I. And I thought they were really kind of fake news. Of the 16 teams that made the playoffs last year, they were by far to me like the team where it was like someone had to get in at number 8 in the East. I think they had a minus 37 goal differential. I told the guys this last week, but I wrote about the Caps and interviewed Chris Patrick, the GM, and we talked about that. The fact that they decided philosophically not to rebuild, but to try and do it on the fly. And so far, so good. I mean, in a league where all we hear about is how it's hard to make trades, they made like 6 significant trades this past summer, and a number of big signings too. And obviously, we'll see how it plays out with Pierre Dubois. But the Caps are so happy with what they're seeing so far, both on and off the ice from him. But they're trying to do exactly that. They're trying to make this thing, make over their roster over the last 2.5 years without going to the bottom of the standings and going into a long, drawn-out process. And it's on purpose. They don't want to do that this time. They did it, almost 20 years ago to land Ovechkin. They tanked, but this time they're not doing it that way. And all these trades add up. Even plucking Sandin off the Leafs at the trade deadline a couple of years ago. It came at a high enough cost, a first-round pick, but they saw more in Sandin than the Leafs did, I guess, and he's played pretty well for them.
Yeah, exactly. You got to win a lot of deals that were not like high radar trades around the league, too, right? Just kind of sneaky deals. You pluck a guy, and he finds his footing in your market and with your team, and all of a sudden you really want to trade, or maybe multiple trades, and it leads to the kind of success we're seeing.
Plucking's huge, man. Like if you dig a guy off the trash heap or from another team that you saw something, I think it's massive.
Massive. So many examples of that throughout the league, throughout the history of the league. With Pierre LeBrun, the Leafs could use that right now, maybe plucking somebody, because I don't know how they're going to keep putting a lineup together here, Pierre, with all these injuries up front. Now Matthew Nyes. How did the Leafs find a way to get through this? I mean, they're winning. They're 6-1 without Matthews, but Domi out, Kampf out, Pacioretty out. We would assume Nyes could miss some time. I mean, this is going to be a real challenge.
Yeah, and again, I'll stick with silver lining because I'm Captain Positive today for some reason. But number one, you'd rather have this happen in November than in April. So they're getting, hopefully for them, their injury wave out of the way early. It allows you to see other players. First goal of the game last night for the Leafs. There you go. And so that all that is positive. You guys nailed it off the top of your show as I was watching. But how can you not be impressed by the way this team is playing right now? Not just playing through all these injuries, but getting into it with a heavy team like Vegas last night. And I know this is dumbing it down maybe too much, but I honestly feel they're taking on the personality of Craig Berube. I mean, that's what I'm seeing, and they are way more willing to get into traffic than they used to be. I still think Craig Berube would like to see one next step in their game where they score a bit more from a heavy offense. It's there at times, but there's still, I think the coach feels there's one more step in that in the next few months if they can get there. But it's certainly no guarantees, but feels like a team that has a better answer come springtime. Now, I'll bring you back to when to me, the greatest single upset loss in this run of where they've been a great team every year but not showing up when it matters was when they lost in the bubble to Montreal. And one of the comments that I remember getting from someone from the Habs was that they just, as that series played on and Weber and Edmonton and Sherrod were doing their thing, they knew by the time they got to Game 7 that one team didn't want to get in the fight. They just knew. And that's as damning as you can get as a team at playoff time to hear that. And that is not what we're seeing right now. Now, I get it. It's November. Don't win cups in November. I understand that, but you have to take baby steps to try to transform yourself and the perception of your team, and that's what they're doing right now in the Craig Berube. Is it going to pay off when it matters? I have no idea.
Pierre, another team that I'm kind of surprised by, especially with some of the players they lost in this offseason on the back end, are the Carolina Hurricanes. So what are they doing right? Is it coaching? Is it their system guys come in? Like what's going right for them to be, doing what they're doing? And again, I didn't expect them to be this high in the standings.
Well, Struddy, they're pretty damn happy they didn't trade Martin Necas this summer when he asked for a trade. I can tell you that.
Yeah. Is he happy?
Man,
is he happy there still?
Oh my gosh, the saying, the best trades you make are the ones you didn't make. Oh my gosh, I talked to Eric Tulsky about that this week, and he admitted, he goes, listen, they were in serious trade talks. Like, it wasn't just media hype there. 28 NHL teams reached out on Martin Necas. and somehow he wasn't dealt. So they managed to convince him to sign a 2-year deal. Now he's UFA in 2 years, and that's a whole other story for another time. But right now he's still there and seems happy. Rob Brindamore gave him a bigger role, a top 6 role. That's what he wanted. He finished on a 3rd line last year in the playoffs, so he's a happier man right now. And credit O-Dog's old team. I mean, they've gone out. You just mentioned O-Dog about knowing how to win these smaller moves. They go out and get Robinson off the scrap heap. He's playing on that line with Necas. They go out and get Jack Roslovic, who has 10 goals right now. Mm-hmm. They lose Pesce and Shea, replacing with Sean Walker and Shane Gossesbear. Gossesbear for sure is playing great. I don't know, man. They just plugged a bunch of holes when no one was really noticing later in the offseason, and all those guys are playing well. So got to give Carolina props right now. Now, just like we just said about the Leafs, the Hurricanes have their own over the hump thing, right? I mean they fizzle at the end of each playoff run, and can they figure that out as well? Who knows?
Pierre, when are some of the teams? I think I know the answer, but when are some of the teams, and you can look at Ottawa, Detroit, Buffalo, and maybe some other bottom feeders that I'm not thinking about, when are they going to look and say, maybe this team is just not as good as we think? Like, we keep thinking, oh, these guys are going to do this. Maybe they're just not good enough to do it. Because if there was any year for someone to take a step in the Atlantic Division, it's this year, and they're not doing it. Which a GM should be able to look at that and say, man, and I know there's so many limitations to what you can actually do, but when do you just, try to change up the mix of the players? How could you consistently watch the same players do the same thing?
Yeah, I mean, listen, I actually was thinking about that today with, Ottawa, Buffalo, and Detroit in particular. Because, people want to lump in Montreal, but I think you guys agree. I feel like Montreal's a bit earlier in that process than those 3 teams.
They're a year away from the same conversation.
Right. No, exactly. That's what I mean. And, I thought Steve Sales had a really good media briefing yesterday, and he talked about needing to have the mental resolve in game to get over situations. I mean, I don't think he beat around the bush. He's talking about, in my mind, what he was addressing is that, he's seeing that once his team faces adversity, sometimes they just struggle. I mean, no team in the league, I'm sure, has given up more goals after they scored a goal than Ottawa.
That's a serious problem, Pierre. That's a bare minimum requirement in the National Hockey League. Bare minimum to have some type of resolve.
And what I'm getting at, and by the way, of those 3 teams, I think Ottawa's the closest to finding that path and getting over the hump. But when I think of the Senators, I look at a team that has fresh eyes at the top running them, fresh eyes behind the bench coaching them, but a group of players with the scars that have been carried over from the last few years. And, I think sometimes people get uncomfortable talking about this stuff, but I feel the same right now about Buffalo, Ottawa, and Detroit, which is there's a fragile psyche there with those 3 teams. Everyone is saying, when are you guys taking that next step? Now, the Red Wings had a pretty good run last year before fading late, but none of those teams have shown it consistently yet. I mean, you can't believe in them until they do it. And, you feel for the fan bases. You can feel it in Ottawa. That's a fan base that is on edge already, and it's November 21st. But they're on edge because they don't want to be under 500 again with a bad November. So it's pretty fascinating stuff. But of those 3 teams, O-Dog, I really feel Ottawa's the closest. I really do.
Well, they got Vegas tonight, and Vegas coming off a loss now last night. And
good luck with if they don't show resolve tonight, I wouldn't even know what to say.
Same as what happened with Edmonton. Edmonton was flat, played poorly in Montreal, and then they went into Ottawa the next night and said, well, we're not doing that again. And they blew the doors off the Sens. And Vegas, I didn't think Vegas played poorly last night, but they lost. And now they get to Ottawa, and you would assume Ottawa's got the advantage. They didn't play last night. They're at home. They're sitting waiting for them. But Vegas, I could see having a bird tonight. And, yeah, we'll see what they're made of. Because you're right about that fan base. Again, anecdotally speaking with some Sens fans or online, the amount of people are like, we're done. It's over again. That's a scarred fan base. And I don't blame them. They haven't been in the playoffs in years.
And they just like the game, they had a stinker the other night. Maybe it was against Edmonton, and I was just like, I've watched, just as an analyst, I've watched that game 100 times where it's like kind of good and then 5 minutes of good play, and it's a lot of the same players doing the same things and the goalie doing the same things. The goalie's always – it's just like how could you I don't know how pissed those guys are up top watching that, but as just a hockey guy that's watching games, I'm like, how could I be watching the same game? It's like the same game. It's a rerun.
Yeah.
Well, and Struddy watched it for years in Edmonton until they finally, as we know, got over the hump, and now they're among the elite teams in the league. It's a long journey. It's a long journey to figure out how to shed those demons. And, one thing I will say is I do not believe the answer for Ottawa is to go out and make a trade to shake things up right now. Like, I don't want to pile on the Buffalo Sabres, but there's a lot.
Okay, but could they add a guy, Pierre? Like, could they go get a guy?
But the point I'm making is there's a lot of former Sabres thriving in other uniforms right now. It's not always the answer to do that. There were a lot of moves in that Senators roster this summer, and I actually think they need things to settle a bit. And the answer has to come from within. Linus Ullmark has to make a save, man. Like, come on. Mm-hmm. Like, it's got to start there, too. And he will. I mean, I think he's going to steady himself, but it's got to start there. I mean, it's pretty hard to feel confident in the rest of your game when you're not getting the necessary saves. So hopefully for the Sens, that's where it starts.
Yep, absolutely. All right, Pierre, we'll leave it there. We'll do it again soon. Thank you for this.
Right on. Good luck with your pick there tonight with Browns and Steelers. I'm not so sure, but
I know you're not. I don't think a lot of people are, but hey, we're on the Browns. Right, we're thinking outside the box. Deep.
At least he's not picking the Cowboys.
Hey! Thanksgiving game next week. Giants and Cowboys. Someone's got to win.
Oh, Cowboys might be like a 3.5-point favorite. That's how sick that game is.
Disgusting.
Sickening game.
Tommy DeVito and Cooper Rush.
What a ball game.
Man.
Give me the under. Actually, turn it off.
Oh,
Thank
boy.
you, Pierre.
All right.
See you, buddy.
Guys.
Pierre LeBrun, our TSN Hockey Insider. Listen, that is the terror is Buffalo is a great case study where Ryan O'Reilly was like, I got to get out, goes and wins. Sam Reinhart, I've got to get out, goes and wins. Jack Eichel, I've got to get out, goes and wins. And it wasn't them individually. It was the team. It was the organization. It was something about the way they were run. And what was supposed to change in Ottawa, and this might take time, is that the owner was different, right? It generally starts at the top. Got to have resources, got to hire the right people, got to have some sort of a culture from top to bottom. And I think Ottawa fans were hoping, okay, Andlauer's in, immediately we start winning. And it hasn't happened. And if they lose to Vegas tonight, people are going to really be panicking if they're not already. I mean, they're 8-9-1. Like, they're on pace for 78 points or whatever, I mean, that's not going to cut it. You're not even close to cutting it. So they better figure it out and figure it out quick. Chuba Hubbard coming up. I think we're going to have Al's brother's final clue of the week. Believe we're going to get that. If not, we'll call Al's brother and he can just tell us what the clue is. We'll find a way to get around this. And our best bet still to come later in the hour. Overdrive continues. TSN 1050 and on TSN 2. All right, best bets brought to you by FanDuel. Coming up later in the hour on the Thursday nighter. The total of this game is 36.5. Like, FanDuel's basically saying, strap in, this is 17-14 tonight. And a lot of running the ball. Could be ugly weather. Defenses show up.
I would hammer the under on that number.
It's such a low number, but I think you're right. It's difficult to see this being, 24-21 or something like that tonight. The way these two offenses have been operating, how good their defenses are. Short week. I think it'll be a nasty football game. Bad weather. Yeah, it kind of screams under tonight. That's why Al's brother, I think, was pushing for taking the points. And Hayes and Bro are on the Browns plus 3.5 tonight. And we have a clue here for you. All right, Al's brother has been sent somewhere in the city with a pair of Leaf tickets. This, I'm certain, is the fourth and final clue of the week. You guys ready to hear from Al's brother?
Dude, I'm really ready for this to be right.
Excited.
All right, OD fans, are you ready for your final clue to win yourself a pair of Maple Leafs tickets with the Utah Hockey Club coming to town? This place has been known to be raided by the police for selling alleged fake goods. Okay,
I know where he is. All right, that's it. for the clues. Okay, if you don't know by now, you're out. But you should know by now. This is a place in the city we have referenced on this show many times. Now I know where he is. And the cue to call will be tomorrow. First caller through with the correct location of Al's Brothers going to see the Leafs take on the Hockey Club of Utah November 24th. Find Al's Brother is brought to you by McAlpine Ford in Aurora. Our family, the Ford family, and you. Full details at tsn1050.ca.
What's that clue again? What is that again?
Something stolen goods were.
I know where he is. I think you'll know where he is, though. I think if you let it, ruminate for a little bit, eventually it'll dawn on you where this guy is. Northeast, east of the city. I'm not going to give the clue away today. We'll get to it tomorrow.
I thought it was something that they don't. Some place that they lie, right? I thought it was maybe Scotiabank Arena. Lying about the
Scotiabank Arena.
I thought about the Leafs playing the playoffs, having success. I don't know. Is that
no? That's not.
Am
accurate.
I revealing the answer? Is that
not
the answer?
Accurate.
Stay loud, stay proud.
Stay loud and stay proud in reverse. In reversed on a comment like that. Although I got my facts mixed up yesterday. I got duped. I thought Taylor Swift showed up yesterday. I guess it was today, and she got the full escort again. Like so committed to the police escort downtown. Is it like I don't understand the big I get that there is some sort of a security risk, but shutting down highways and cops and all that kind of stuff
in the pills
for a second week in a row, it just seems
the
unnecessary.
Traffic is the way it is.
Have you guys gone? You guys gone this
No, we
year?
haven't been down.
Not fans, not Swifties?
Nah, I saw her in Detroit, Strud. I saw her when she was in Detroit a year and a half ago. I was way ahead of all these bandwagon jumpers. I saw her right in the prime of the concert. But it's a sore spot. If you don't have tickets to one of these 6 shows, it's how do you explain yourself? How did you not possibly get a pair of these tickets? But anyway, Chuba Hubbard will join us here in a moment. Chuba's going to cruise past 1,000 yards rushing. Just signed a new extension. I think it was last week. And where's he from? Strud, Sherwood Park. Does that ring a bell for you?
A suburb. Yeah, a suburb of Edmonton. Just nice little community.
I wonder if he's a Facebook marketplace guy. Maybe you and him can connect.
I don't know.
Maybe isn't that where your buddy Jerome is from as well, Strud?
No, he's from St. Albert. They're big competing. 2 suburbs that really compete with each other, right?
Okay.
But Chuba, I remember he was drafted by Carolina and Christian McCaffrey is there, and you're like, okay, is this guy going to get a chance to play? And then Christian's traded, and now what is he? Is he as good as everyone hopes he is, and he's really developed as a premier back.
He's a stud, man. He's top 5 in rushing in the NFL this year.
Crazy. So good.
He's a great college running back, and he came in with a really deep running back, draft class. I remember there were dozens and dozens of backs, and he fell down the draft a little bit, but Carolina found themselves a gem, and they've committed to him. Now they've paid him, and listen, Carolina's in the position they're in. It's not great. It's not great. They haven't won a lot of ball games, but I think it speaks to where he is in his career that they want him to be a part of this to get them out of it. So Chuba Hubbard will join us here in just a moment. We'll get to our best bets later in the hour. Edmonton, Minnesota tonight. Is Kaprizov a guy that does he move the needle in that market, Strud?
Oh yeah.
He's a guy that's got people buzzing. You got to see him when he's in town.
Yeah, he's so talented. And the thing is, if you're not aware of him before you arrive to the game or watch him, you're going to know. I mean, the guy is playing so well. One of the most electric players in the league.
Yeah, he is. Yeah, it's weird because of the market. With all due respect to Minnesota, they have not had a ton of superstars, throughout their history since they returned to Minnesota. And I guess Gabrick was that guy for a long time, and Noodles for a couple of years as well.
His contract is going to be spicy if that doesn't get isn't his deal up?
He's up after this year, I believe.
What's he at though? Is he at 9 already? 8 or 9?
Yeah, he signed a bridge deal
at 9.
So where does he go?
That guy's getting 12, I think. 12 something.
So he's almost there. It's not like he's going from 3 to 12, right? So I mean, and they have that money coming off the books. Right? I think they have, I want to say it's $12 million or something coming off the dead cap space. So they will have a little bit of room, but Brock Faber also got a big raise. So,
and the cap's going to naturally go up, right?
Yeah.
There were reports recently that it may not just go up the standard $3 or $4 million. It may go up $6 to $8 million, which that's a lot of money. That's a big percentage point in terms of having to recalibrate everyone's deal. But yeah, I believe Kaprizov's up. Obviously Marner would be up. Rantanen is up. Like, there's some big players, man. Like, Tavares is up. Marchand is up. Like, those are big names who have been in the league for a long time. And I guess when you see what happened with Stamkos last year, I do wonder if anything's possible. Like, is Brad Marchand just a lock to return to the Bruins?
Maybe not. Maybe not.
Maybe not.
If they don't see something in his game where it's like the Boston Bruins, I think they pick players out and they're loyal and this and that, but there comes to a point where they're going to look at performance and say, do we really want to toss any money into that?
Right.
They're
And
not
we
just
have to
going
reload
do it
and
because
rebuild.
he's the captain.
Exactly. Like, Tampa may have done them a favor. Like, we got to change it up, man. We got to go a different direction, especially if they keep losing. They missed the playoffs this year. You know, then it gets really, really interesting at the deadline. I don't think they'd flip them at the deadline, but anything's possible now. And I think Stamkos and the Lightning changed everything from that standpoint. Our best bet's still to come, but we were talking about the pride of Sherwood Park, Alberta. Struddy, you've, I'm sure, sold a number of Facebook Marketplace items to people from Sherwood Park. I'm sure it's happened. Maybe one of Chuba's family members or friends.
Do you think he's ever watched you play a live hockey game, Struddy?
Oh, I'm sure when he was growing up, he put on some YouTube clips, me wheeling around.
Jason Strudwick of the Edmonton Oilers. Probably Gretzky, Messier, Doug Waite, Struddy, McDavid. I would guess his favorite Oilers of all time. Here he is of the Carolina Panthers, Chuba Hubbard. How you doing, Chuba?
I'm doing well. How are you?
We're doing well, yes. Jason Strudwick is with us here. And Struddy's an Edmonton guy, so, whenever we bring your name up, he's beaming with pride. I mean, do you feel like you've made it now? I mean, you're a stud in the NFL, but how often do you get back to Sherwood Park in the Edmonton area?
I try to get back as much as I can. Obviously, in the off season, I have my kids' annual camp out there every July usually, so I'm always back then. But anytime I can go back and see my family, I try to make it a priority.
Yeah, well, listen, you're off to a great start this season. You got that extension last week, and knock on wood, you don't want to put the cart before the horse because of the nature of the sport, but it sure looks like you're on pace to cruise past 1,000 yards rushing this year, which would be the first time you've done that in your career. What has worked for you so well this season? I mean, you're obviously putting up big numbers every single week.
Honestly, I'm very blessed and fortunate to have a great team around me. Obviously, some people may think otherwise, but our O-line is amazing. Our receivers are amazing. Tight ends are amazing. And then our scheme as well. So just a product of my environment, as you could say.
Well, in Carolina, I mean, you mentioned the outside world looking at you guys. You haven't won a lot of ball games. What makes you believe like this is going to turn around?
I mean, I've been here. This is my 4th year now, and obviously I've had a bunch of different coaches, a bunch of different teammates, a bunch of different scenarios happen. But, just the culture I believe that we're building here, the people we have in the building, and the work we put in, I just have faith that it's going to work out. And obviously it showed in glimpses. We just got to make it show up consistently now.
With Chuba Hubbard of the Carolina Panthers, playing running back in the NFL, we always talk about it like the physicality of the sport, running between the tackles, the mentality in the transition going from college to the NFL. Like, what's it like trying to just beat these monsters on the defensive side of the ball every week?
Yeah, I mean, obviously blessed to be in the NFL, but that comes with its territory. You get to play against the best as well, which is, like you said, there's monsters, there's crazy guys, there's, tremendous athletes, but, I like to think of myself as, similar in those aspects. So I just hold my head high, give it my all, and like I said, it really doesn't matter the size always. It's really just a mentality thing. So you either got it or you don't.
Chuba, we were talking about the conditions tonight in Pittsburgh and just the ugliness of it. It's supposed to be sleet, rain, snow. What's the key to having success? Because everyone says it's going to be a low-scoring game in these conditions. What would be a key for you in those conditions to have success?
Honestly, I just go out and give my best, regardless of, who we're playing or what the weather's going to be. Obviously, different outcomes can happen based on whatever happens in the game, but I think just trusting the process and putting your best foot forward always is the key.
But it's ugly, right? Like, what about fumbling the ball, controlling the ball? Like, how different is your coach's approach based on how ugly the weather could be?
It's never really. I think in the league, they hold you to a high standard regardless of the weather or not. So they expect you to play your best regardless. So obviously, ball security, all these things are a high priority regardless. But you can overemphasize it, but every week it's a priority. So.
Chuba, you got a chance to play with Christian McCaffrey and maybe watch and learn him. What did you take from him while you're teammates and understanding how he approached the same position you played?
I think just, the one biggest thing I learned probably from him was just how to be a professional, how to handle yourself on and off the field, how to take care of your body, how to do the little things right. Very fortunate, obviously, to be in the same room with him and just watch from afar to see how he operates and how he goes day to day. So if I say anything, it'd probably be that.
Well, he obviously, set you up pretty well, and you've taken the ball and run with it, and you're having a career year. You just got paid, and you'll be down in Carolina for a while. So best of luck the rest of the season, and thanks for doing this. We appreciate it.
No worries. I appreciate you guys. Thank you for your time.
Chuba Hubbard of the Carolina Panthers, and from beautiful Sherwood Park, Alberta, which our understanding is possibly the home of Ryan Rishaug. So there you go.
Yeah, well known. I think there's a sign there. It says, "Welcome to Sherwood Park."
The home of Ryan Rishaug.
Is he a celebrity in Edmonton, Rishaug, or what
level?
Big
time, yeah. Oh,
really?
Big time. He's got a you would love it, O-Dog. He's got one of those indoor tennis golf simulators.
Oh, he's got a golf simulator.
Yeah, so he actually he and his wife have to park outside. He put it in his garage and put a heater in his garage so he can golf all winter inside. But he's forcing his wife to go outside and clean off the snow and heat up their cars outside. Like
Embarrassing.
I just don't get it.
That just doesn't. That's not anything I support.
Especially in Edmonton, man. Like the snow and the cold, man. Come on.
And if you see his swing, I'm like, you play golf? I didn't know you even played golf. Like, he's lucky to break 90.
Right.
So he has a membership. He's got this golf simulator. Like, I guess next year he'd try to break 90 consistently.
Okay, well, I guess you got to put in work during the off season, man. Shogger's out there like grinding in the garage every single day. I guess I appreciate that mentality, but I don't know, man. That's a cool lifestyle decision. But like, if you're in Canada and you have no access to the garage, it's one thing if it's loaded with kids stuff and bikes and all that. It's another thing if it's a golf simulator. But he's a man on a mission, so I guess I have to appreciate that. News coming out in Major League Baseball, not to anyone's surprise, but Aaron Judge has won the MVP in the American League, and he did so unanimously. And I believe he's only the second Yankee to ever do that. And I would guess it's just a matter of time before we hear that Ohtani did the same thing in the National League.
You know what I saw today, Hayes, and I'm not surprised, but I was just, maybe I didn't track it. Chris Sale won the Cy Young in the National League. Yeah. I knew he was in Atlanta, but I didn't know he had such a good year where he was going to win the Cy Young.
Oh, he was phenomenal. I think he won it unanimously too.
Chris Sale, I thought he's been a stud in the past with the White Sox, and then he went to Boston, and I'm like, that guy is still dialed in. He won the Cy Young this year.
It's a great pickup by Anthopoulos because he had all those injuries, in Boston. Like, he started in Boston like he was a rocket, man. He may have won a Cy there. I know he won it in Chicago. But, he put up great numbers. And it's funny how Major League Baseball just kind of daily this week, it just comes out. Like, Paul Skeens won the Rookie of the Year in the National League.
Yeah, he was really jacked up about it.
He was really excited. Like, he was really, really excited to win.
Tell you what, there's a lot of good free agents available this year. If you want to make upgrades on your team, Blue Jays, you could do it this offseason.
Yeah, you can. Yep. You can, man. There's a lot of people available. You just got to be willing to spend the money, and you can't waste your time on one guy. Like, that's another thing. Like, if you're in on Juan Soto, great, but be trying to get ahead of the curve if you can on other players. And it's a domino effect. It's like the big guys are going to wait for Soto and hold up the whole market, know what he got, and then they can adjust what they're asking for. And we're waiting for some action here, and it just hasn't happened. But, yeah, Aaron Judge winning the AL MVP unanimously. Again, not a surprise. Clearly was going to win it. But I think a bit of a surprise that only the second Yankee to ever do that. Come back with our best bets. Tee up the football game again tonight. Oilers back in action as well. OverDrive continues. TSN 1050 and on the TSN app. All right, today's best bets are powered by FanDuel. Make your picks and assemble a same-game parlay in seconds on the FanDuel Sportsbook app. Jameis Winston under 212.5 passing yards tonight. Russell Wilson over 9.5 rushing yards. I think he's going to have to take off a few times tonight. And Russ is going to try to find George Pickens. That's what he does. Good weather, bad weather, it doesn't matter. Pickens over 4.5 receptions tonight. That parlay paying plus 552. Today's best bet's powered by FanDuel. The FanDuel Sportsbook app is the exclusive home of the OverDrive same-game parlay. Please play responsibly, 19+, physically located in Ontario. So we got a bunch of games in the NHL tonight. Ottawa playing Vegas. You got Edmonton playing Minnesota tonight. The Leafs are off until Sunday. And it's just been a weird sked for the Leafs. But the Raptors are back in action, and Scotty Barnes is returning tonight. Scotty Barnes back in the lineup, and I think the mask, I think he's going to be rocking it. I hope
thought he
he's
said
rocking
goggles. I thought he said goggles.
That was what he was talking about yesterday. He did say that the goggles, I don't know if it's a goggle mask routine, like he wants to wear the mask. Like his eye is still all mashed up, man. You can see it. Like his eye is
all
still
red. Yeah,
it looks still pretty damaged and crazy. Like when he put the mask on, I saw him wearing it in practice. It looked legit.
One of the biggest questions, like NBA, it's like we know how bad they are and how many losses they're going to accumulate this year. How does that affect the growth of a guy who you just paid and handed the keys to? Like, is it possible to become that guy? Like you go, like Hayes, you watch more basketball than I do. Like, do you think Cade Cunningham is?
I don't know, man. It's tough.
Yeah, like that many losses. Cade Cunningham was drafted first overall, wasn't he?
Yeah, he was. Yep.
So it's like, what is he even? What level is he at as far as the league status? Like, he's not a stud. Like, he's not.
That's the question, man. It's very difficult when you have a team that is tanking or tanked to get you, and is probably going to have to tank for a number of years. You just don't have any help to elevate you.
I know. So how does that guy develop? Like,
I'm not sure. And there's coaching turnover. That's going to be the question. Does Darko coach here like for years? Does he
Absolutely
get through
not. Absolutely not.
I'm not sure.
No one can go through that amount of losing and not make a change.
It's tough.
And it's awful for him because once they turn the corner, he's the guy that gets punted.
Yeah. Generally
they don't just associate the coach that lost with a new winning regime, right?
That's right.
It's that you're just kind of a placeholder. And we've seen it in all kinds of sports. It's crazy.
Happens all the time. Yeah, there's Scotty getting ready. He's got the goggles. I love it. So, yeah, we'll see because, listen, there's so many injuries in the NBA. Luka Doncic is hurt now. Luka's banged up. You got Paul George left the game again last night. Philly lost.
That's a mess. That team is a mess. You see
Such
how many times
a mess.
Joel, he left the game a couple times. Like it's, you know, and then he gets called
so
out.
Embarrassing.
That's a challenge. Like, how do you get called out because you're late for meetings?
That
or practice.
What's crazy. That's the veteran superstar, highest paid guy on your team, and he's not even showing up on time.
That's hard.
That's embarrassing for a professional. And yeah,
like, what do you think Michael Jordan thinks of that? You know, like
exactly.
He was always there working. Like it's missing games. Like it's just hard.
It's scary.
You're building a foundation on something that obviously isn't. He's not ready for that type of leadership role.
No. 2 wins. The Raptors have 3. Like the Sixers have 2 wins.
Incredible.
Nick Nurse has 2 wins.
Season's over. Nobody's ever made the playoffs with that record, or I think 2 teams have or something.
It's going to be very difficult for them to do it. And there's another one. We talked about Darko. I don't know if Nick will survive that. He may not. Like, he may not survive it. If they win, like, 16 games and there's turmoil and it becomes a circus, it's very tough to survive that.
Well, how could you possibly dig out of that if Joel Embiid has no interest in playing? You're screwed.
You're done. Before you even start, you're finished.
That's exactly right.
That's
not being a leader. He needs to be a leader. He's your best player. Needs to be a leader and show everyone how to be one.
Big time.
Pro.
So we'll see what Scotty's got in the Raptors tonight. We got the Thursday nighter, a bunch of hockey games. It'll be a fun night in sports. All right. Thanks to everyone behind the scenes for helping out. Thank you, Struddy, as well, for stepping in. The Strud Muffin. The oven.
Good times.
The oven was hot all day, man. 3 hours.
Didn't play Strud or Dud.
I know, and I had a bunch I had a bunch.
Another time.
Believe me, we'll bang Strud or Dud. I got a bunch of them.
Stay loud, stay proud.
Stay loud and stay proud. That's what we're saying here. That's what we're all about.
Keep going.
So, yeah, thanks to everyone behind the scenes, everyone for tuning in, TV, radio, podcast, web. We appreciate it. We're out of here. Enjoy your evenings. Enjoy the games tonight. We're back tomorrow at
4 p.m.
We'll chat then.